Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another weekly edition of the show, live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Should be a good one. Some echo in the back. I fixed it. It's okay. But I'm, of course, joined on this lovely, lovely show by the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
I dropped my cell phone out of a moving car today, and this case is so durable. Saved it. Not a scratch on it. The case is mangled a little bit, like at the corners, but the phone is fine. I can't believe it. Like I dropped it out of a moving car, and it's fine. That's a high quality product. I don't know.
The bottom of my phone kind of got ripped up, right? So
Yeah.
it stopped being protection. Dropped my phone and broke it for the first time in my entire life. Never broke a phone before. Depressing.
I haven't broken a phone in a while, but I used to break them all the time. Like before they had phones, like when you had flip phones and stuff, I used to break them. Did you ever have a flip phone? Even old enough to have a flip phone? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Like I used to break those all the time.
Yeah, I was definitely like right at that jump when we went to like the full keyboard phones, like the sidekicks, all that.
Yeah.
I was definitely around at that jump for sure.
I started my first phone. I had it in 11th grade. My parents got me a cell phone for my birthday when I was 16, because that's like when I had my full driver's license. So they wanted me to have a cell phone, and it was like a brick, right? It had the antenna. That was my first cell phone.
Goddamn, Gary.
What was that?
Obviously, we are here. There's a lot of boxing to talk about. Ton of fights this last weekend. Big fight this weekend. And some really unfortunate, tragic news in the boxing world that we have to address.
It's going to be a good, a bad, and a ridiculous show today.
Absolutely. It is what it is, man. This is boxing. But first, let's get to the fights this last weekend. Let's break that down. Let's review that in its entirety as much as we can. Gary, I'm assuming you watched the first event, chronologically speaking, the Sonny Edwards and Mutilani card.
I watched everything.
You watched everything. I
watched everything.
I'll be honest, guys. I missed some of the Matchroom card, and I have not had time due to just work to catch up on some of it. So I do apologize. But Gary, holy shit! Like Sonny Edwards is legit now. Like
he's legit. He's legit. All right, look, Methylane's 38.
Yes.
Methylane just couldn't get in front of him. Like, I don't want to say Methylane is all the shot because I picked Methylane to win, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite in hindsight. Okay? Sonny Edwards, we knew had skills. If Methylane wasn't as slow as he was, and he could get in front of Sonny Edwards has no pop at all. But what I'm saying is, without the ability to commit and to establish yourself in spots, they're gonna Josh Kelly him. They're gonna track him down, and someone with pop is gonna track him down and break him down. He's got skills. There's no question. It was a great performance. Right, best performance of the week, no doubt.
But to be fair, Mutilani does have pop.
He does. He just never hit him. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But like I was talking about this earlier off air with someone about Julio Cesar Martinez and the idea of like him fighting Sonny Edwards.
Martinez destroys him.
I feel like Martinez does have issues though with cutting off the ring. Am I wrong in that assessment? Like, obviously, Martinez throws way more than Mutilani. Obviously, he has way more pop. Obviously, his style is way more destructive than Mutilani. But we're talking about a guy that is a come-forward swarmer that maybe doesn't have the best footwork. And a guy with Sonny Edwards who clearly shows that he can deal with that pressure to some degree at a high level and still perform and almost win every round, let's be honest.
You're right, because that's obviously the first fight my brain goes to, right?
Be a great fight.
At first, I just said Martinez destroys him because Edwards can't keep him off of him. And then you're right. Like, Martinez has flaws of his own, right? Like, he's a beast offensively, but he's got flaws. He's not particularly good at cutting off the ring. And we haven't really even seen him in with an A+ mover like Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Because Edwards is an A+ mover. On his feet, he's great. Off the stick, he moves, he circles. It's just at a certain point, and he's got a world title. So, like, it didn't hold him up from winning a world title. He legitimately won a world title off a long-reigning champion. No doubt. I'm not taking anything away from him. But, like, you're not going to run the gamut of guys at that division if you can't, like Caleb Plant. Sit down, establish yourself, fire off a 1-2, stop the guy from coming forward, right? Like if you don't have how to stop someone from walking in the front door, just like I keep saying Josh Taylor, Josh Kelly did with Avanesian, he's gonna eventually break you down and beat you up, right? And that's kind of now it's gonna take a higher level guy than Avanesian because Sonny Edwards is a better mover than
Absolutely.
I keep doing it. Josh Kelly. Josh Taylor is fantastic, by the way. Whenever I say Josh Taylor in a negative connotation, I assume I'm talking about Josh Kelly. I think the world of Josh Taylor.
Let's be honest, in this division, the only real test for him, like it's not like Dalakin or anything like that. It's probably Martinez, and that's it. Like if he gets past Martinez, he could rule this division theoretically. The only like worry I have is the Martinez fight or him moving up, because 115 is a murderer's row. There's no way he beats any of those guys in the top 15. It just doesn't happen.
And with Tanaka, like if Tanaka was still at 112, who would you take?
Oh, Tanaka, easily.
That's what I'm saying. Like, look, Edwards is good. I'm taking nothing away from him. What I'm saying is good offensive fighters with pop are gonna beat him. Like he just doesn't have any power to stop him from walking in the front door.
Can we talk about like a real hype job here in Michael Conlan? Can we talk about that now?
I actually think Conlan. Yeah, can we? Because I actually I don't think the world is of Mick Conlan, and I don't think he's good. I thought he's not good, but I've always said that, right? Like, I always actually thought this was his best performance. Not that it was good, but it was better compared to his other performances. Yeah, I'm serious. I've always thought he was trash. Like, I really do. Like, I never thought he was good. Like, I thought this was better because he threw punches with a purpose. Like, he doesn't have power, but he didn't just, like, slap off punches like Cal Sloppy. Like, he tried to land punches. He tried to fire a stiff jab. He's just not good, right? Like nothing he does is going to work because he's not that good.
He's a Josh Kelly, right?
Josh Kelly's better than him because Josh Kelly's a mover. I don't think Mick Conlan is good.
No, he's not.
The godson of my son, he's a bartender and he works in this restaurant. It's owned by this Irish guy, and this Irish guy, whenever I come to visit him, loves Mick Conlan, thinks the world of Mick Conlan. And he's like, "What do you think of Mick Conlan?" Because he knows I'm a boxing guy. I'm like, "He's good, man. He's he's good." I don't really know what you want me to say.
He doesn't beat anyone at 122 worth note, right?
No, I guess I was going to go into this fight with an open mind, right? He said 126 is all wrong. He should have never been at 126. That 122 is going to be a different fighter. And he was, but he still wasn't a good fighter.
True.
I'm guessing, like, everyone's saying how bad the performance was. I think his other performances were bad. Like, I don't think this one was.
Yeah, but think about like this was him going down to a division, facing a nobody, and honestly, barely getting past the fight. Like, I didn't score it, but I can definitely see whatever the guy's name is beating Michael Conlan on the scorecards. Like,
I think it would. I didn't score it either. I think it would be rough to get to a scorecard where Conlan loses. Like he won. It's like when Boo Boo fought Vanis Martirosyan. It's like, boy, that wasn't good. I think he won enough rounds, right? But maybe Martirosyan, like if you really want to get generous. It was like that. It's like I didn't score it off the eye test. I think he did enough. He won enough rounds. Like he won more than half the rounds, but I'm not totally sure.
Oh man, get fucking Michael Conlan the fuck out of here, please.
He doesn't even have the big money fight with Shakur Stevenson on St. Patrick's Day in New York City. He doesn't even have that anymore.
Well, like what's the in-house fight at 122 for him?
There is none. They thought he was going to be a world champion at 122. That's not going to happen. 122 is so good. They can have him.
There's no way Top Rank honestly believes that, right?
The only thing I can think about is him and Fulton, but they'd have to work across the lines. You got New York versus Philly. You could do that in the Garden. It was Ireland. You know what I'm saying?
He's not going to beat Fulton. He's not going to beat MJ. Like, there's no one to beat.
He's not going to beat Reese Lee. He's not going to beat Brandon Figueroa. He's not going to beat any of those guys. He's not going to beat Vic Pisayas. He's not going to beat Angelo Leo. He's not going to beat anyone of that. He's not going to beat Trey. What's the mighty midget's name? Tremaine Wiggins.
Tremaine Williams.
Tremaine Williams. He's not going to beat him either. Like he's not gonna be any of those guys.
But all these fights are not in house. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? I don't get it. Anyways, I really forget the rest of this card, to be quite honest. Though I did watch it, nothing really of note that sticks out in my mind. Gary,
the rest of the card besides, I mean, can we just be honest? Outside of the main event, I know people are interested in Conlon.
The main event
was the main event was the only thing on this card worth watching.
Yes, we can absolutely agree on that. Let's get to the next card of the weekend, the Chisora Parker pay-per-view in the UK and on DAZN in the US. I mean, what do you want to say about this fight, Gary, the main event? We have both guys with new camps. I thought neither one looked that great, to be honest. Right? Like, Chisora gassed out within 2 rounds. Again. Parker was throwing these slapping shots pretending to be Tyson Fury. And I don't know why he was doing that.
It was a close fight, and there was some drama down the end, right? But it's like a basketball game where both teams shoot 35% and turn the ball over 20 times. Yep. It's close. It's just not really fun to watch, right? Like going down, like the most interesting part of the fight was going to the scorecards and see how the judges were going to score it. Because you thought Parker won, right?
Yeah, I did.
I thought Chisora won, but I could see it going either way. Like the only intriguing part of this fight was how the judges were going to score this. Like, yeah, the fight was not good. It was not a good heavyweight. We had a good heavyweight match. This wasn't it.
No. This was definitely not it. No. And it was one of those cases, like I said, like both guys went to new camps and they looked like demonstrably worse. Right? It wasn't a case of them going to new camp and like you can tell like they're so adjusting. No, like they looked worse. It looked like they took a bunch of things from both camps and they were both the worse off for it. Especially Parker. Especially
Parker. I think Chisora did things differently. I think that's not a bad camp for him. I just think he needs more fights there.
I just think he can never fix that cardio issue.
He's got to knock guys out. And that's not really McGirt's. You know, McGirt's in there as a boxer mover, not to get in there. And maybe that's not the right camp for him, right? Maybe he needs Freddie Roach, someone who's a more offensive-minded.
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that at all. Parker, I don't know what the fuck to do with him. Like, what do you do with this kid?
He just regresses. Like, I thought he was good at a point. Like, I never thought he was going to beat AJ. But, like, he's good, though. Like, when he was 25, he was good. And now he's 28, 29, entering his prime, and he's not good. Like, how is he progressively getting worse?
Well, let's be honest here. It is the style that he tried to implement in this fight. Like, he thought he was Tyson Fury in there. Right? Like, that's...
I don't know what he was... Yeah.
That he went to the Andy Lee gym with Tyson Fury. He was sparring with him all the time. He tried to copy that style, you know, that real slick boxing style. And that's not Parker. He can't do that shit. He's a pretty basic boxer puncher, right?
Without a lot of pop on his punches. But he's got decent speed, right? For a heavyweight, he's got good speed. Like, he throws nice combinations. Like, there's things that I like about him. But it's just like he gets worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to do with him. Moving on from that, unless you have any other thoughts on Chisora Parker.
No, there's no more thoughts on
that. Katie Taylor versus Natasha Jonas. It was a really good back and forth fight. I will say this: Katie Taylor. It's hard to get a read on her in terms of her true greatness because I'm going to say this. And I know it might be a little bit hyperbolic. She's pretty hittable for a pound-for-pound talent. And I feel like that wasn't the case 2-3 years ago. I felt like her boxing was a lot more clean 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know what's happened, but I felt like she was in there and in every exchange she was getting caught with something. Even though she might have been getting the better of the exchange, every exchange she was getting caught with something.
If you are going to exchange at this level, you're going to get hit, right? I mean, I think it has more to do with the level of competition, right? Like, to me, it's like an identity crisis. Like, she doesn't know who she is. Like, is she a boxer? Is she a banger? Like, what is she? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, again, I thought she won. Okay, did we agree that she won?
Yeah,
okay.
She did win. It was close. It was right. Like I would say, it was a 6-4 decision.
I had a little wider, but I could see they were close rounds. Like you could swing the other way. Like I think maybe 6-4 I might have had. I definitely had Katie Taylor winning.
Because 2 rounds off the bat, Katie Taylor was hurt, and I gave the rounds to Nunes for that, and because she was hurt bad. And then there's another 2 rounds in there. I don't have the scorecard in front of me that she definitely, I thought, connected with enough big shots to win the rounds.
But this is what I said. If she fought Serrano, she'd lose because Serrano has pop. If she fought,
I think not McCaskill in a rematch. I want
McCaskill. Yeah, I don't even remember the first fight. I know Katie Taylor won, obviously, but McCaskill beats her, right? Like, as well as this pound for pound
at that
thing.
weight.
Oh, Matt, you're freezing up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're good now.
We'll try canceling out some stuff here. It's taking up some space. If I freeze, you just keep talking, Gary.
Yeah. I think Katie Taylor's good. Like, I think she's got good skills. I think she needs to find a style and stick with it. I think that, which would be, I think, boxing on the outside, which means you probably can't move up in weight classes anymore. But pick a weight, pick a style, and stick with it, right? It's kind of my advice to Katie Taylor, although I thought she won, and she beat a really good opponent. So I'm not going to knock her.
I agree. What do you want next for her, though? Like, do you
Serrano is the fight I want. That's the fight I want.
You're too far away from divisions right now. I feel like Serrano's fighting it out like 120 something, and we have Katie Taylor at 140.
But that's what I'm saying. Katie Taylor.
I'd rather see like the Michaela Mara fight, Terry Harper fight. I'd rather see some other fights that are closer to our division that make sense, or McCaskill rematch. Those all
McCaskill rematch would be good.
Yeah.
Could McCaskill go down to 40? Or I guess he's undisputed at 40.
She used to be, but I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying, because he was way smaller than Brockus, right? Like, she should be able to go down, I would think.
But I don't think they would, because if Katie Taylor wins, she's now the undisputed welterweight
champion. Yeah.
There's no reason for McCaskill to go down to 140.
Especially the size wouldn't be that big of a, because like fighting Pacquiao welterweight, he's not really welterweight, right? Like McCaskill's not really welterweight, right? She fights there, she could win there because she's not good, but she's small for the size.
Agreed. Moving off of that, the other title fight on the card, Dimitri Bivol versus Craig Richards. I'll be honest, this whole card kind of disappointed me in some ways. Bivol, I don't know what to make of him. I think clearly he probably has the best skills boxing-wise in the division, but he doesn't have the pop at 175 that these other guys do at the very top, like Better Beef. I think he is hittable at a certain point. And I imagine, guys like Canelo coming up to 175 and beating up Bivol. I think Bivol's shelf life isn't too long. I think his career's not going to be too long because I don't think he is leagues above the competition. He kind of reminds me in some ways, I know this might be a little bit sacrilegious here, Gary, but like Joseph Parker, like that prime Joseph Parker we talk about, where like good boxing skills, kind of a B+ and everything, but not a lot of pop. That's what Bivol is to me, kind of a B+ and everything, good cardio, decent chin, but no pop. Gary, your perception on him fighting Craig Richards, who's kind of just a domestic level guy.
First, I want to see Craig Richards not in domestic. I know he's got a loss or a draw. Does he have a loss and a draw?
Yes.
But Richards is good.
He's
right?
good. No, he's good.
And I want to see him is he just a domestic level guy? I don't know. I want to see him against someone at a higher level. Can he beat Ramirez, Gilberto Ramirez? Could he beat Jesse Hart? I don't know. I'm not going to make a prediction on that, but I'd like to see him against a guy like that to see where he stands.
Mm-hmm.
Bivol is so skilled. His skills are excellent, but he's fighting in the wrong weight class. I've been saying this for a long time. And I thought Bivol was doing fine. He was winning the rounds early, and then Richards figured something out, and Richards was outboxing him. Now, Bivol had won enough rounds where he just eked out a decision, right? Mm-hmm. But it was not a good performance. Now, Bivol's been out of the ring for a year and a half. Now, I know a lot of people are, right? Bivol has not been fighting the best level of opposition, right? The fight with Joe Smith was 2 years ago already, and since then, he's fought Lenin Castillo. Is that his name?
Yep.
Which is not a world-level opponent. So in 2 years, he's fought one guy who didn't offer up much resistance, although Castillo did put hands on him. I think he had him hurt at a point in the fight.
Not much Richards. Richards put hands on.
No, Richards run a bunch of rounds. Yeah, especially the second half of the fight. Like it looked like one sided. Then something like a switch went off. It was just one round. Like he ran. If this was a 15 rounder, Richard probably wins because he keep winning round. I want to see Richards again. But I think Bivol had some ring rust. I think he's a guy that is his skills and his movement is so important to who he is, right? Like, because he's fighting out of his weight class and he doesn't have a lot of pop, so he's got to execute everything perfectly, which he usually does. He didn't do that today, this week.
Yeah.
So, again, maybe it's ring rust. I want to see Bivol. I've been saying this forever. 68's a better division for him, especially being on the matchroom side. Go to 68. When he was at the Joe Smith fight, I was at the weigh-in, and I was talking to his camp. I said, what's he going to weigh tomorrow? They said 78, 79. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't be hard for him to hit 68.
No. And plus, obviously, the bigger fights are there. Like, maybe Canelo moves up to 175 to, take another belt. But I don't feel like he needs to. Like, Bivol probably has to go down to 168 to face Canelo right now. And that'd be a good fight. I think Canelo wins that, though. And I think Beterbiev beats Bivol right now.
Beterbiev for sure does, because he doesn't have enough. Like, it's the same thing I said about Edwards. He doesn't have enough pop. Like, if you don't have enough pop, Beterbiev's going to destroy you, right? Like, Vosdick has pop, and he destroyed Vosdick, right? Like, yeah, he's eventually going to get you. Even though I don't think Beterbiev's last performance was his best either.
No. Because, like, the Pascal fight was better, for example.
Yeah.
Like, the Barrera fight was better, for example. Like, he's had good performances. The Joe Smith fight, for example.
Yeah.
He cleanly outboxed and dominated Joe Smith. But he's kind of just done nothing since then.
And that fight was 2 years ago. I get there was a worldwide pandemic that took but he's still out of the ring, right? And he's a guy that his skills and his reflexes and his movement is so important to him, to who he is as a fighter. And like, I want to see him again, but I want to see him at 68. 68's a better division for him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Callum Smith, who would you take in that fight?
And Callum Smith looked like dog shit.
Yeah, I can't see Bivol being worse against Canelo. How about this? All right, 68. John Ryder always wants to fight. Bivol versus John Ryder.
That's a tough fight. I think Bivol wins that, but it's a tough fight.
Win that. All right, it's a good fight. It's a good test at 68, but Bivol should win that fight, right? Yeah. Look, Eddie Hearn, I just did your job for you.
All other fights on the card. Chris Eubank Jr. picked up a win against Marcus Morrison. I did not catch this fight, unfortunately. I apologize. I did not catch also the Campbell Hatton fight or the James Tennyson fight that I heard your boy got knocked down the first round. So haha.
Eubank came back and got the knockout. That fight was brutal. He's not good either. These fighters, I get that you want to follow in your dad's footsteps. For most of these guys, Campbell Hatton, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.,
Shane Mosley Jr.,
Chris Eubank, you're never going to be as good as your dad, but you're always going to be compared to him. Go do something else. Seriously, do it and play another sport. You're an athlete. You can, some of you.
Hey, but look at Conor Benn. Like Conor Benn has some hype right now because he
Conor Benn is good. Yeah.
Conor Benn is good though. I mean, to be fair, Chavez Jr. was good for a period of time, right? Like he was winning rounds against Jacobs. It was Rosado.
He was. Like Chavez is just Chavez has some skills, especially when he was younger. Like he's not bad. The problem is his dad's the GOAT, right? Like his dad, I don't think his dad's the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, but he's regarded that way, right? Like he's the Babe Ruth of, Mexican boxing. Like you're going to be compared to your father, and it's not a fair comparison, right? Again, I don't think he's that bad. Like when he's not a bad fighter. He beat Andy Lee, right?
Yeah,
it's a good win.
Yeah.
He's not the greatest thing we ever saw, but he's not a bad fighter. Like Shane Moses is a bad fighter. Chris Eubank's a bad fighter.
Holyfield Jr.
We don't know about him yet. He's had like 4 fights against nobodies.
What about Campbell Hatton? We don't know about him. He's at 2 fights.
Right now he looks terrible. Right, but
Did he
he's
look
young.
really
He's
bad?
had 2 fights. I don't know why he's fighting this high up in cards. I know why, because his dad's a legend, right? Same reason why Chavez Jr. was given,
preferential treatment.
Yeah,
of course, it's nepotism. Boxing's filled with it. Any other thoughts though, Gary, on the card?
No.
All right, let's move on to the PBC pay-per-view on Fox. Gary actually bought this one.
Hey, $50. Good card.
Oh man. Oh, so good.
Can we start with the Laura fight and then work?
Dude, Laura fucking nuked that guy, man. Bad. That was horrendous. I feared for that young man's life. I thought he died. I thought I saw his soul leave his body at one point, to be quite honest. It was amazing. Old man Laura is something else.
So there's somebody, and I don't like to call people idiots and things like that. There's somebody who Rob always goes back and forth with on Twitter. Like, not Rob, not Ron, Ring IQ. This is a guy with a very similar name. What's Ron's? Fighter IQ or something like that. This is something. It's like Ring IQ or something like that. And he's like,
that guy, yeah,
he's not particularly bright. It doesn't seem.
No.
And Rob was going back and forth, and the guy said, "LaManna took a dive." And I said what I said. It's like because like after he hits him perfectly on the ear, like his glove gets caught on his shoulder, and, like so that's the picture he shows. Like, guy. He took a dive. That's what hell of a way he took a dive. He took it by a perfect left hand off the ear and put him down, and he fell down like cutting down a tree. It's like that would be like
that wasn't a right catch.
Yeah. You know, that wasn't Kermit Cintron jumping out of the ring against Paul Williams.
So good. Shout out to Laura, man. Again, old man Laura, he's put in some work, man. He's been a real exciting fighter in his old career. I like it. Like think about the Castano fight, for example. Like
he's 38 now. His legs probably not as mobile, so he's got to sit down. And he's always had the left hand. People used to say, "Oh, he doesn't knock people." Yes, he does actually. Like he knocked Angulo out. He knocks people out. He's got that left hand is dynamite.
It's kind of like Rigo. Like he's all of a sudden like catching people, like hurting them in more exciting fights because the legs aren't there like they used to be. Absolutely. Also on this card, what was the fight that you were all sad about, Gary? I'm trying to find it. What was
Omar Figueroa.
Oh, that's right. You want to talk about Omar?
I mean, we have to, right?
Yeah. Give me your thoughts on it, Gary.
It's tragic. You know, and then after I was in a car accident once, right? Like, it was like when you get into the shoulder and the shoulder's at a dead stop, right? And there's a car that has no idea that the shoulder traffic is stopped, and it's just, you know, bearing down on me, right? Going 50, 60 miles an hour, and there's nothing I can do. It's obviously going to smash into me. Right, that was watching the end of this Figueroa. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, this is awful. Yeah. Like, this was terrible. He came out good. Like the first 2 or 3 rounds.
First round for sure. Right. Like by the end of the second round, it was already like Ramos was catching him. You can tell like Ramos was setting in.
But then I thought he bounced back on the third, and then for the fourth, fifth, was it 6? And eventually beat him up so bad. It's rough because. How do you train him? Like the style where he's moving and right, then he switches lefts and he's throwing shots, and it's hard to train him, right? Like, and he just lost it. Like, I don't know if he could ever get it back. He's not that old. He's 31. It's not, but you know, 31 could be old if you abuse yourself. It's just sad. Like, he was one of my all-time favorite fighters. And like, you go back to the end of 2015. He took a year and a half off, fought Guerrero, blew him out. I was like, okay, he still is himself. Took another year and a half off, fought John Molina. Escaped, and John Molina's trash. Escaped the decision. I mean, that close. Great fight. So people are like, oh, it's a great fight. I was like, guys, you shouldn't be going life or death with John Molina. It shouldn't be that close of a fight.
And I want to say most people felt like John Molina won that fight.
You could definitely make an argument. But it was such a good, entertaining scrap. Like just a war that no one really cared that the decision probably went the wrong way. Then he fought Ugas and lost every single round. It's like, okay, let's do Ugas. Let him get back in camp. Let him get motivated. Like, because he was training himself that fight. Like, I don't even know what he was doing that fight. And then this fight, Matt had some information on him. I heard contrasting information from people who know him well. Matt was obviously right. Matt's information was obviously accurate.
I was right.
I mean,
it was accurate. Poor Omar, man.
It's just a shame that he would get. And then, look, I want to see him get in shape, come back down to 140 because he's not a welterweight.
No.
Right? He just doesn't like to make weight. But with his style, he's not a mover. He doesn't have huge power like his brother. He's a volume guy with decent pop, right? Who throws a lot of punches and it gives you weird angles.
Let's be honest, though. If Abel Ramos, who isn't the greatest guy in the world, he's a good fighter, and he's kind of like caught like a late, career surge, so to speak, even though he's only 29 too. But, like, he was never like thought of as anything special, right? Like Jesus Ramos, his nephew, like he's a highly touted prospect. Abel Ramos was not. He was never a highly touted prospect. If he can do that and put on that type of damage on Omar, like imagine what like Ramirez or Josh Taylor or Prograis or like anyone of note, your boy Barrios. Like imagine what Barrios would do to him. Like it
wouldn't be good. But he needs to, like you said, he's only 31. He needs to reestablish his career. He needs to go back down to 140, get himself in prime shape, right? And fight a mid-level, fight Lewis Ritson, a guy like that, a guy you should be able to beat, and give it a full camp. You lose, then it's over. But give yourself one more shot. Don't go out like that. That was awful.
Omar,
it was painful to watch.
It was painful to watch. Omar, if you're listening, here's my career advice for you because I differ from Gary. It's done for you, man. So go cash out. Go get that Broner fight.
I think that too because he can win that fight.
And I don't think he wins that fight. And
Broner doesn't throw any punches, just on volume. Figueroa wins.
Ramos doesn't throw a lot of punches, but he just with hard shot, man. Okay, and let's be honest. Besides the punches, like Figueroa's cardio also dropped too.
No, yeah, not even close. That's probably from the years of abusing his body.
Absolutely, man. Like Omar, cash out, man. Whoever that cash out fight is, if it's Thurman, whoever it is, go get a fucking cash out fight, man, because it's done for you, man. It's finito. Go. Just right off into the sunset with a big bag of cash and try not to,
You should take another year and a half off and then fight Omar Juarez when Juarez is coming up at 140 because they're from like 40 minutes away from each other.
The battle of Omars.
Omar Juarez is from Brownsville. He's from Weslaco. They're real close. Like one's kind of North Central Valley and then one's close to the Gulf. But they fight each other.
But before we move off of that, shout out to Abel Ramos because he really put on a great performance. His shot selection was impeccable. His power was dialed in, his focus was dialed in, his accuracy, his jab was amazing. Like he did all the right things to stop a rhythm fighter like Omar Figueroa. Besides Omar's clear issues, right? Like Abel fought a great fight too. I don't want to, undercut Ramos's performance by always, talking about Omar's deficiency, so to speak, right?
Did you see the picture I posted of Omar in our group chat like the next day?
No.
See if you can.
I did. Yeah, he was messed up.
And he's spitting up blood. I guess he broke a rib or something. I don't know what would cause you to spit up blood like that. That was brutal. And his face the next day was completely shut. Like both eyes were shut. That was not his day. And
no, it was not. It was not his day. For Abel, I wouldn't mind like a fight with one of the big guys next. Whether it's Sean Porter, whether it's Danny's moving up, so not Danny, Thurman, like anyone like that, or even like. Let's say like Crawford, keeps running after the Pacquiao fight. Like if Spence gives Abel the fight, let's say next, the fall of this year, I wouldn't be that opposed to it.
He should fight. Yeah. Jamal James, I think, would be a fight. The winner then would get a title shot or something like that. Ramos has put together a good streak.
Yes.
He lost to Ugas, but the fight was competitive, way more competitive than any of us thought it would be. Before that, he beat Perella, which looks really good in retrospect after Perella arguably beat Tony Harrison. Or at least he fought him to a draw officially, but a lot of people think he went. That win looks a lot better in comparison.
Absolutely. Also, in terms of undercard fights, Adrian Granados picked up a draw with Jose Sanchez. I only caught like the last couple rounds of this fight, Gary. What I saw, Granados was looking like he was winning, but I only saw the last 2 rounds. Gary, any thoughts on Granados' draw?
I didn't watch it. I just saw Granados got the draw, so I didn't watch it.
Okay, moving on. Sebastian Fundora had a little war with Jorge Cota that I was not expecting. Cota was landing some shots on Fundora that I was not that happy about. But Fundora, man, he throws those uppercuts in a way that a tall guy like him probably shouldn't. But goddamn, they are devastating. Gary, your thoughts on the prospect at 154?
He's gonna look. He's still young.
Yeah.
He got through it. It was a tougher test than expected, but he got through. So I'm not gonna knock him. He got through a rugged opponent. Cota. I mean, you should beat him, and he beat him. So I'll say it wasn't his best performance, but it was something that he needed to go through. Right. Yeah. He passed the test. So the old saying is, "Win today, look good tomorrow." And I would say he's a good prospect, and he did that. He won today, and hopefully he looks better next time.
I know the stoppage was a little bit controversial.
It was a weird stoppage.
It was. I do think that Cota was near being stopped, though. To be quite honest, it didn't look like it was going his way in that fourth round. I think regardless of that, he would have probably got him out of there within that round or the next round.
Yeah, I wasn't against the stoppage. I mean, it came at a weird time because Cota did just land, like I think it was a left hook or something, pretty nice. But it didn't stop Fundora, and Fundora literally did not miss with any power shot for about a minute. Right? Like, I mean, he's not mounting much offense. He's not blocking or moving out of the way of anything. He's just blocking punches, taking punches with his face, right? Like the stoppage came at a weird time, but I don't think it was a bad stoppage.
No, I don't think it was that bad. Also on the card, Eduardo Ramirez picked up a nice TKO win against Isaac Avalar. Jesus Ramos, obviously the highly touted prospect, had I would say, a somewhat disappointing performance against Javier Molina. He clearly won the fight, but he didn't look like he was the next best thing.
Javier Molina beat Danny Garcia.
In the amateurs, yes.
The amateurs.
A long ass time ago. Molina's really good. Like, no discredit to him. Like, it's not like it's John Molina, right? Javier Molina is a really good, like, durable test. And it just passed it to a degree. But I expected him with his power for that to come into effect. And Molina just survived. Like, to his credit, he got on his bike, and Ramos really couldn't cut off the ring that well. This is probably a great sort of educational fight for Ramos. I think he's going to go back to the gym and get a lot better from this performance. But it wasn't one of those that had me going, oh, he's going to be the guy to dethrone Spence, in a year or two. Like, maybe I and others need to pump the brakes a little bit on Jesus and his progression as a prospect.
He is just 20.
Yeah.
And the performance was fine. Like, to be 20 and to get a win over a guy like Javier Molina, it's a good win. He's not ready. He's not at the Boots or Virgil Ortiz level yet, but he's still a bunch of years younger than those guys. So, again, I don't think it's a rush. As long as he can make 147, I think he's going to have a long reign there. I still think there's him. Xander Zayas is kind of in the same spot where he's really good, but they're still really young. And I think Ben, Connor Ben Jr. Is really good too. So I think the 147-pound division is in great shape for its next, when
the turnover.
Yeah. When Spence is gone and Thurman is gone, Danny's already gone. Porter, I don't know how much. I mean, I don't know if Porter can really go to 54 because he's 5'3".
Dude.
Yeah. I mean, he may be there for a while, but I think the division's in good shape, and I think Ramos is a part of that. Again, it wasn't his best performance, but it was a good performance against a good opponent where he won. You just were hoping he would look more spectacular on pay-per-view.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the main event then. Andy Ruiz against Chris Arreola. This fight, obviously, speaking of other fights on the card, turned out to be far more competitive than previously thought. Arreola was in fantastic shape. Like, credit to him and Goosen, because they got Arreola in the best shape of his career. And, I mean, they obviously had a strategy behind that. Like, get him lean to get on his bike and box with Andy Ruiz. And he did that. He definitely won rounds up, obviously hurt and knocked down Andy Ruiz with a nice little short right hand. But Andy clearly was just landing the harder shots, landing better combinations throughout, and was able to cut up the ring a little bit better this fight than previous fights. For a matchup that I thought Andy was going to blow him out and then look to move on to bigger things, I didn't see that. So I wouldn't mind that Luis Ortiz matchup first, and then the winner of that facing Wilder again, if it's Luis Ortiz or Ruiz for the first time, or AJ or Tyson Fury, or anyone else in that sort of elite bracket. But I mean, it was a good sort of heavyweight fight. I mean, for going the distance, and I don't like heavyweight fights that go the distance usually. Look at the Parker Chisora fight. I mean,
Parker Joshua, yeah, heavyweight fights. Fury, Klitschko.
Yeah.
Usually they're not good.
No, usually it's not the best when the heavyweight fights go the full distance. But this was a pretty good, fight for what it was, and it turned out to be far more competitive than what I had previously thought. Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good performance from Arreola. It's good to see. I want to see Arreola again. I think Goosen did a really good job. Again, look, Arreola is not going to be the heavyweight champion of the world, obviously. But he could be a quality opponent. And if he wants to, I know he's 40, but he can hang around and make some more money if he wants. I mean, I'm sure he made a decent paycheck for this fight, especially when we find out the pay-per-view numbers, which we haven't found out yet, right?
No.
I think he's going to do a decent number. He'll get a decent back-end check. If he wants to, I think he should get with Goosen again. If he wants to, if he's motivated, hang around because you can still beat people. It was a little bit disappointing from Andy Ruiz because I think Ruiz, and I still think Andy Ruiz is the second best heavyweight behind Fury. I still think he beats AJ if he isn't 400 pounds. I think he beats Wilder, although he could get knocked out by Wilder because he got knocked down by Arreola. If Wilder hits him with a shot like that, Wilder could stop him. So I still believe in Andy Ruiz. It was the first fight with Reynoso's camp. He was in better shape. He's coming up over a year layoff again, which I know Arreola's coming off a 2-year layoff. I get it. But I still think there's enough good things. The speed is still good. His combination work is real good. I think in time, another fight or two. I'd like to see him fight Ortiz. Beat Ortiz, then get to Wilder. If you can't beat Ortiz, I would still say his career's not over because he's still fairly young for a heavyweight, and he's in the right camp. What?
And it's heavyweight.
It's heavyweight, yeah.
But the rules are different in this division. Well, that's why Arreola can stick around and still get good paychecks, fight good competition because it's the heavyweight division. You can be a good player in this division and make bank, and that's what Arreola kind of is.
I think Ruiz could beat Ortiz, but he not the way he fought against Arreola. If he fights the way he did against Arreola, he loses.
I agree with that. You think the pay-per-view buy rate was decent?
I think it is. I feel like it was decent. I gauged it off how Twitter reacts, right? That's why I said that stupid Mike Tyson Roy Jones fight was going to do well over 1 million because everyone was talking about it. I feel like a lot of people had this fight. We're tweeting about this fight. I said 250. I think it may trend closer to 300. I think this thing did well.
Let's see. I did not pay for this, of course.
Again, you don't know who actually paid for it and who didn't.
That's absolutely true.
Tyson Roy Jones, you had an older people, my age and older, were attracted to it because of the names. Mm-hmm. So they don't really know how to go to crack streams, right? So they paid for it. This fight, maybe.
Shout out to crack streams. Let's talk about the fights this weekend. Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders. The showdown that some people wanted, I guess. This whole fight week has been weird, Gary. It's been Billy Joe Saunders complaining about everything, saying that he's not going to fight, not facing off with Canelo. I really don't like Billy Joe Saunders. For a guy that could have made a fight week promotion 10 times better because he is that little bit of a prick, right? He just chose not to do it.
Which I get, right? If you just want to say, I'm focused on the fight, I'm not doing PR. I'll do PR for the rematch after I beat him. I'm focused on the fight. I don't care about the PR. You can find me for not going to the press conference. I'm making a ton of money for this fight. This is the biggest moment of my professional career. I'm focused on one thing, the fight. I would get that. But then he bitches about this and complains about this. It's just, I'm not fighting. I'm watching Scarface. So it's he's not really 100% focused on the fight. He's still trying to be a troll but just go and talk trash and when he told the reporter in the UK that he needs to get he eats too many pies and he can't get naked in front of a lady looking like that, right? Go be that guy, right? If you're gonna be an annoyance, at least do it to help sell the fight, not this. You knew he wasn't walking away from the fight. He's gonna walk away from the Canelo fight. I mean, I like Billy Joe. I like his antics. I like that he didn't care that people hated him. But now it's he's trying to make people hate him, and he's trying to be a baby, right? Like, and for the people who think that Billy Joe has a chance in this fight, he absolutely does not. He does not. He doesn't.
What round does Canelo get him out?
This is the question. So I said, if Billy Joe Saunders fights to win, right? And if he finds that he's losing the rounds and he stands in with Canelo stops him. If he just goes into survival mode and just tries to run out the clock, he's probably good enough where he can do that, right? He's probably good enough where he can work up the jab, avoid all pressure, and survive 12 rounds. So it depends on Billy Joe Saunders. Does Billy Joe seize the moment and try to win? If he does, he'll get knocked out. 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th round. If he just tries to survive, he goes in a pure defensive mode, he's good enough, he'll survive.
I think we might be shocked by how early this can go. I think this can be stopped between around 6 and 8. I wouldn't be surprised.
It could. Like, look, Billy Joe is a good boxer. I think for the first couple of rounds, Billy Joe is going to box with the first 3 or 4 rounds are going to be evenish, right? And then Canelo will get on the inside, break him down, and then it's up to Billy Joe. Does Billy Joe stand in and return fire, or does he just get on his horse and say, I can't beat this guy and run out the clock? But I think the first couple of rounds are even. Billy Joe's a really good boxer.
But let's be honest here, Gary. If, let's say, like you said, like the first few rounds, Billy Joe's boxing well, he's on the back foot, he's doing well, it's competitive, but then Canelo's getting on the inside, starting to break him down. Going on the back foot more doesn't really exist.
He'll hold. He'll use. You know what I'm saying? He'll run out the clock. Again, it depends on how much pressure and how early Canelo starts beating him up. Right? If it's the 3rd round, no, he can't make it. If Canelo doesn't really start beating him up until the 6th, 7th round, he can hold. He can use those kind of tactics. He's naturally the bigger guy. I feel like he can kind of weather the storm and lose every round and get through the fight. But if the moment he fights to win, he's going to lose.
Yo, Yuta in the chat always says the stupidest shit. Does Canelo have good power at 168? I don't think so.
He had power at 75, but not at 68. He knocked out Rocky Fielding at 68. He knocked out
Callum Smith.
Didn't Callum Smith go the distance?
No. Did it? I don't think it did.
He beat the
Did he stop him to the body?
Did he stop him to the body? That fight should have been stopped. I feel like it went the distance. He beat the what's the Turkish guy's name again? Yildirim. Obviously, he stopped Rocky Fielding at 60, and he stopped Kovalev at 75, who Andre Ward couldn't stop.
No, it did. Right? It did go the distance. I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it probably shouldn't have.
Billy Joe could go the distance. You're right.
It depends on Billy Joe.
Yeah. Anyways,
but I just are people trying to hype themselves up because Billy Joe's not going to win this fight? Like I remember people saying when Mayweather fought Victor Ortiz, there was like a live pool of people who were picking Victor Ortiz. I'm like, guys, look, I get that he's a southpaw. And you think Mayweather struggles with southpaws, and I know that Victor Ortiz just beat Berto, and you think he's got a ton of power. He's not going to win the fight. Like if you want to say he's slightly more competitive than other people have been, okay, fine. He's not going to win. I feel like this is like people are like, Billy Joe's southpaw. He's a mover. He's slick. He's going to win. It's like he's not going to win. Like he's not going to. There's no way he wins this fight. Now, whenever I say this, like I end up being wrong. But like, come on, he's not beating Canelo. Like I don't know if you're trying to. Not you. The hypothetical out there saying Billy Joe's got a chance. You're just trying to convince himself that this is going to be a fight. Right? Like, I tried to convince myself that the Heat were going to beat the Lakers in the finals list. It's like, they're going to beat the Lakers. Like, I tried to convince myself Gaddy was going to beat Mayweather. Obviously, he's not going to win. Right? Like, Billy Joe is obviously not going to win this fight. Clearly, he's not going to win this fight.
No, he's not. People keep thinking, like, it's Canelo Alvarez from, like, 2013 when he fought Laura.
Laura had way more power and was a much better boxer than Billy Joe. And I'm not no disrespect to Billy Joe. I like Billy Joe. But Laura was a much better boxer and had much more power than Billy Joe does. So that's not even a good comparison. But I get it, right? He's a southpaw and he's a mover. But still, even at that, Laura is way better.
Chris in the chat is saying that the Kovalev fight was a fixed fight and he took a dive. Response, Gary, to that obvious evidence there?
Did did Cornflake LaMonna take a dive too?
Obviously. Come on.
I mean, you can't get. I heard Anthony Durrell said that he took a dive. It's like, look at the shot he got hit with. Like, all right, why would you wait till the 11th round of a fight that you're winning against the biggest guy in the sport to take a dive? Like on a shot like that, like why wouldn't you take a lesser shot and get knocked out? Like, look what Bruce Seldon did against Mike Tyson. He barely got touched and said, "I'm out. I'm done with this." That shot almost hit me. That had some stank on it. I'm out of here. If you go back and watch the Bruce Seldon fight, he doesn't get hit, right? And Richard Steele's the referee. He initially calls it a slip. You see him waving it off. But then Bruce Seldon acts like he got hit by a bus, so he starts counting. Like, I guess I missed it. Like, you go on the first knockdown, Richard Steele waves it off like it's a slip. And then Bruce Seldon is just like, oh. It's like, maybe he got hit with a shot. I'll start counting.
Shout out to boxing refs. Just the best. Just the best. Also on the card, Ellen Soto versus Katsunari Takayama for the WBO light flyweight title. Ellen Soto is looking real good. I think he's probably going to win this fight. Also on the card, there's not much, to be quite honest. Frank Sanchez, who's a heavyweight prospect, is on the card, but he's a heavyweight prospect. Keyshawn Davis is on the card, probably the only other fight that I care about.
Keyshawn's brother's on the card too. I think this is
Kelvin?
like Ryan Garcia's brother.
Kelvin Davis.
Yeah, it's like his brother's just getting him some love. You could be on the card too, bro. You could fight on a Canelo card, bro. Yeah. But again, I don't know. Maybe Keyshawn Davis' brother's good. I don't know.
He probably isn't, right?
All right. Yeah, it's probably Ryan Garcia's brother. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this card, Gary?
No.
Kind of a weak card, to be quite honest.
I mean, the main events. Again, it's a unification fight with Canelo, so it's a good fight. But we know who wins the fight, and it's not Billy Joe. And no, it's not. Billy Joe doesn't have a great chance of winning. Billy Joe's going to pull the upset. No, he's not.
Also this weekend, Magomed Kurbanov is facing Liam Smith in his first real test at super welterweight on ESPN Plus. I'm actually really excited for this fight because Kurbanov he's always looked like a decent prospect from what I've seen on tape. But he hasn't fought anyone.
What day is it? Saturday or Friday?
That's a Friday card.
Cool. I didn't even know about that card.
It's in Russia, so the time might be weird. So look for your local listings. Anyways, Gary, any other thoughts on fights coming up this weekend? Are you ready to move on to news?
No, I'm interested in seeing that. I didn't know about that until right now. So Matt just made my Friday. My wife is now upset because now instead of doing things, I have to watch boxing over because it's an afternoon card. I imagine it's in Russia, right? But afternoon for us.
Oh,
so my wife's now you just ruined her Friday. It's like when there's a match from Italy card on, which I have to watch every fight, and then there's a Saturday, like a Friday night card on. Oh, my wife is miserable. It's like you haven't moved in 8 hours, and then tomorrow's Saturday, and you're gonna watch boxing all day Saturday. It's like, yes, I am. I gotta do the show, babe. I mean, you want me to go in there, like Rob did on Name Redacted and just make things up.
That's the best, man. The most Rob has gone on this show, not watching a single fight and just bullshit. It's hilarious.
See, this is why Rob needs to come back, because he said that Craig Richards was gonna do good in the Bivol fight. I
knew he was gonna do good. Like Craig Richards is a decent guy, It's just like the division isn't that great, so he can be in the top 15.
Yeah.
But like there's that massive drop from like the top 2 or 3 guys to the rest of the people in that division. That's just how it is, unfortunately. That's why Bivol, like you said, should probably move down to 168. Way better competition, far more interesting fights for him. But anyways, there's only like one news topic that we really have to get to, and it's an unfortunately really tragic story. Felix Verdejo, obviously he was a highly touted prospect from Puerto Rico, top rank, pegged him as the next Miguel Cotto. He has gone on, allegedly, of course, at this point, but all signs point to him doing it. Him and his wife planned the murder of another woman that he had got pregnant, and it's looking like just a truly horrendous and like tragic story. Every time some piece of news was coming out in this development, it got worse and worse and worse. Obviously, thoughts and prayers and condolences with the family. I mean,
So you're freezing up again, Matt.
am I back?
You're back now, yeah.
Okay. I don't know what you heard last, but obviously thoughts and condolences with the family that has lost a loved one so tragically and so early. I mean, Gary, any thoughts on this news? Thoughts on it happening in boxing again, like Carlos Monzon, Evan Valerio? Like, there's a lot of stories like this, unfortunately, in this sport of boxers abusing and ultimately murdering women. And it seems like we never really address it as an industry. We pretend like it's outside the sport now. Like it's no longer part of us. But Fideo was a part of the sport.
Yeah, he was
part of the sport. You know what I mean? Like we have to like kind of address what are some of these root causes that are leading to abuse towards women in the sport. It needs to be addressed.
I mean, this is beyond abuse. This is double homicide, double murder. It's tragic. So I've read everything I could on this. Apparently he found out she was pregnant and he said, "I don't believe you. I want to see the blood test." He went over to her house to see the blood test that she was actually pregnant. And the victim's mom said, "Be careful. He's already threatened you to get rid of the baby." Then when they came over, that's when they kidnapped her. Obviously, he did believe her that she was pregnant because it was all planned, and he tied her up and threw her off a bridge and then shot her a bunch of times. I mean, it is really a heinous thing.
Yeah.
There's a national law which National Victims Unborn Persons Violence Act. So it's a federal law. He's going to have federal charges, which means he could face potentially the death penalty. And it's just a tragic ending. I mean, again, everyone gets their day in court, and he'll have a defense, and he'll say whatever he says. But right now, I mean, if you're looking at this objectively, you have a motive. You have someone who says, "Be careful, this person wants to kill you." Apparently, I don't know about this, and it's probably not going to be released until the trial. Apparently, there's the video. Yeah. You haven't seen it, have you?
No.
Apparently, there's a video of him dragging her onto the bridge.
And I believe the person that flipped and told the cops is Fidejo's wife, who also was an accomplice.
Involved. The mother thought she was involved too. Apparently, Verdejo had said that, to get rid of the baby because, his career and he has a family and he didn't want, everything points to, yeah, he's the guy. But again, always let the facts come out. I don't know. I mean, maybe this is, but it objectively looking at it, he certainly looks like the guy that did it.
Yeah.
And it's tragic. Verdejo came into the sport on fire. He was supposed to be that guy, the next Puerto Rican superstar to kind of carry the torch from Cotto. Right. He was an Olympian who lost to Lomachenko. And I mean, his career was I don't want to say his career was a disappointment because he was still somehow only 27.
No, his career was a disappointment.
His career was a disappointment. He's only 27. So, I mean, he still had time, doesn't now, to fix that. I know he got into a motorcycle accident and missed a while, like a pretty serious motorcycle accident at one point. But he was supposed to be the guy. He never really panned out. Not that he was a bad fighter. He just never really panned out to the expectations that were set for him. And, now there's this. And again, prayers to the family of the victim. That is a horrible nightmare. Lose your daughter,
yeah,
and your grandchild. It's, the news was like surreal to me. It was like Aaron Hernandez. It was like, no way, because they said he talked to the police, and everyone already said he was guilty when he talked to the police. I'm like, how do you know he's guilty? How do you know he doesn't want to know where the girl is? And then the next day they arrest him. It's like, oh well, that didn't go well. I mean,
I want to say that there was somebody on, it's boxing Twitter, right? So like who knows how verified is the information, but it was pretty early on. I remember seeing that there was video evidence of the bridge. And that I want to say came out right around when he was first sort of interrogated, right, by the police. I think that once anyone saw that piece of information, there's alleged footage of this. It's like, oh, then no wonder they're going to catch this guy. Like, no wonder it's done. Like, it's a wrap, because if you got video of the crime, it should be really, relatively easy to apprehend and then convict that criminal for the crime, the murder on video. Just insane. Again, like Gary said, prayers and thoughts and condolences to the family of the victim. And we have to just keep addressing this in the sport. Like, there's a lot of history of abuse and murder towards women in this sport from legends. Like, think about how often people talk about Carlos Monzon as the best middleweight ever, and how often we don't really address the fact that he killed his wife. Like, we never really talk about that. Edwin Valerio was the guy supposed to face Pacquiao at one point. Whenever we talk about
Mayweather, yeah.
And whenever people talk about him, people say, "Oh man, he was supposed to be amazing," but they never talk about what happened to him. The fact that he killed his girlfriend or his wife, and then their child, right?
Yeah.
And then committed suicide in the jail. Like, no one ever talks about that. Or think about all of the abuse towards women. Mayweather, Marcus Brown, in a sort of a contemporary sense. Like, there's a lot of this happening, and it starts in the gyms. It starts where the community is. So, like, if you're in a gym right now and you're hearing any sort of shit about women, you got to stamp that shit out. Like, we're a sport that obviously struggles when it comes to treating women equally. Look at how the system is for women's boxing compared to men's boxing. Like, it's embedded in the system. Like, we have to start at the ground level at some point in addressing these issues. It just has to be. Gary, before we end the show, I want to talk about something to alleviate, this. Talk about a fun story before we go off. Did you see that Triller? Because they're obviously in a lawsuit with, crack streams, our beloved, or the holy crackstreams.com, and a litany of other amazing websites that we use. Did you see that they came out and were like, hey, if you had used any of these platforms and you didn't buy our show, you have until this date. I forget what the date was, like a month. You have like a month to go to Triller and then buy the event, so we forgive you.
Look, I just typed some things into my keyboard and this thing popped up. You can't hold me accountable for that. I just typed things in. That's all I did. How are you going to hold me for that? Like, I didn't know what this was. Oh, what is this?
What are they going to do? Track down everyone that fucking illegally streamed it?
I had a friend in college who was pirating movies, and I think it was Miramax sent an FBI, and they they stopped doing this. Like, sort of like not certified. But what's the one where they knock on your door and they hand deliver it to you?
They served him a summons.
Yeah, he cut that out. Right. So I mean, he wasn't even making money off of it. And there was another kid who got a similar thing. He was making fake IDs. Like, they were New Jersey fake IDs. And the fake IDs at the time were just like laminated. Like, the IDs were just laminated. So they were really easy to fake. And he got like the stencil from his mother who worked at the DMV. He got served too. They both lived on the same floor. So
oh my God. That's just fucking that's so good. Oh man, shout out to Triller, man. Shout out to them doing what they're doing. But Gary, that's gonna be it for the show. We're gonna be back next week, probably early next week too. Let's probably do a Monday show. I know Gary likes doing early week shows.
Yeah.
Show. And then I'll be back for General Strike podcast, I believe later this week. That should be probably a Thursday or a Friday show. And anyways, obviously, hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Patreon.com/Trending Now Network, Cash App Trending Now Network. And remember, Gary has a new channel, Texas Boxing Scene on YouTube. You can find, I believe it's on our YouTube page at our featured channel section. If it isn't, I have to put it there. So someone remind me if it's not there. And we'll be back later. Obviously, remember at all times, Fuck the police and free Palestine. Gary, final thoughts, man.
Yeah, find me all forms of social media, 3D Boxing blog. Guys, please go to Texas Boxing Scene. All the proceeds I make from that channel are going to go to autism research and recovery. It's the autism community in action is the charity it's going to go to. To the end of my heart. Look, if you guys don't want to listen to the channel, you don't like me, you find me annoying, you don't like Texas Boxing, that's fine. I won't take it personally, but at least subscribe to the channel. You can turn notifications off if I bother you that much. You won't even know I release. Let me get to 1,000 as quickly as possible. Guys, it means a lot to me if you could do that. Texas is still not a country, and that needs to change. Let's make Texas a country again. Ivan Calderon is still not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's make that change. Let's get the Iron Boy in the class of 2021. From Texas to the world, thank you, and God bless.
Peace.